You are not just someone who was once hurt by a narcissist. You are a powerful soul, carrying within you light, intuition, and an extraordinary capacity for rebirth. What you went through wasn't meant to destroy you, but to awaken you. Because behind the manipulation, the lies, and the pain lies a sacred opportunity. The chance to return to your true self. A self no longer controlled by the emotions of others, but guided by awareness, compassion, and an unshakable inner strength. In today's video, we're not just talking about surviving after leaving a narcissist. We're talking about rising above them, about transforming pain into wisdom, about healing in a way that makes you immune to manipulation, and letting your inner light dissolve every illusion they ever try to create. And if you are on that journey, the journey of becoming the strongest, freest version of yourself, then stay with us until the end of this video. Together, we will uncover every layer of deceit, every subtle manipulation tactic, and by the end, you'll see clearly you don't need to fight to win. You only need to awaken to be free. If you find value in this healing journey, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any content that supports you on your path to truth and freedom. But what? When you stop reacting and start creating, the awakening begins in silence. There comes a moment that has no name, when you no longer react the way you used to. No more scrambling to explain yourself, no more trying to please, no more confusion caused by the gaslighting that once made you doubt your own reality. It's not numbness, it's not desensitization, it's awakening. It's the moment you realize they no longer have power over you. When you stop reacting to the narcissist, you are no longer part of the script they've written. You are no longer the puppet whose strings are pulled by their emotional cues. Instead, you become the author of a new story, not for them, but for yourself. In that moment, you begin creating a new version of who you are, someone who doesn't live from fear, but from truth. Someone who no longer seeks validation from the one who hurt them, but finds it in the quiet confidence of inner peace. And they manipulate by convincing you that you must react, that you must get angry, must feel broken, must scream or beg, so they can keep you trapped in an emotional cycle they control. But when you choose not to react, when you step back, stay silent, and let calmness lead, you've reclaimed your power. You've unplugged the cord they use to control you. From there, you enter a new state, the state of the creator. No longer are you merely surviving the emotional storms they generate. You begin to carve out space of your own, a space where you are safe, where you can breathe, where you can simply exist without asking for permission. You begin to design a life grounded in peace, not just survival. And then something miraculous begins to happen. Your body starts to change, your mind clears. The energy field around you, the one you may never have noticed, begins to shift. You're no longer vibrating at the low frequency of manipulation and chaos. You start to rise, to lift yourself with gratitude, with mindfulness, with the kind of love that nurtures rather than destroys. That's when you begin to feel light. You're not just escaping them, you're being reborn. The narcissist cannot survive in this space. They need chaos to breathe. But you are now choosing clarity. They need you to stay in the dark, but you are walking toward the light. They need your reactions, but you are learning to create and consciously direct your energy. And that is what makes them lose control. The most powerful truth is this: you don't need to defeat anyone. You don't need to prove they're wrong or convince anyone of your story. You only need to see clearly, understand deeply, and choose to live in alignment with your inner truth. That alone is enough to collapse any system of manipulation built on illusion. Because when chaotic energy encounters coherence, one of them must shift. And this time, you are the one carrying coherence. From this point forward, you no longer have to struggle to prove your worth. You begin living as someone who knows, I have value simply because I exist. I don't need to perform to be loved. You begin to create a reality where peace is the standard, not a luxury. And here's the beautiful part. In the very moment you choose not to react, you open the door to create a new life. A life without power games, without cold, piercing stares that make you shrink, without manipulative words that leave you doubting yourself. Instead, there is light, there is awareness, there is your true self, uncontrolled, undefined by pain. If you are on this journey, I want you to know this: you are not alone. Millions of others have stood exactly where you stand, on the edge of pain and at the threshold of freedom. And they've crossed over. You will too. In this video, we're going deeper into why non-reaction is the most powerful action, how you can recalibrate your nervous system, release survival responses, and rewire your energetic field so that you not only survive, but truly live. This is not just a message, it's a map. back to yourself. If this message resonates with you, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and stay with us until the end, because in the next few minutes you will hear the reminder your heart has been waiting for, that you are worthy of a life that is not controlled, not manipulated, not twisted by lies. You are worthy of a life of freedom, where your inner light does not need anyone's permission to shine. Part 2, when you heal through the soul while they manipulate through the ego. There is a profound truth we were never taught as children. Some people in this world will not love you with an honest heart. They will use you as a tool to feed their wounded ego. These people are not seeking love, they are seeking power. They don't want connection, they crave control. The narcissist manipulates from a distorted ego. Every action, every word, every gesture of affection in the beginning is not born out of a desire to share love, but from a hunger to possess and dominate. But you, a sensitive soul, someone who lives by intuition and deep emotion, you did not come into this world to control others. You came to heal, to love genuinely. And because of that, you became a target for their manipulation. But you were never meant to be a lifelong victim in their play. The truth is, within you has always burned a flame that no force can extinguish. It is the light of your soul, a light the narcissist does not understand and therefore fears. When you live in alignment with that light, you don't need to fight them. You don't need to prove anything. Your very presence in stillness and peace in non-reaction is proof enough you are no longer in their grasp. You begin to realize that it was never your job to heal them. It never was. Instead, it is you who needs to return inward, place a hand on your heart, and whisper, I too deserve to be loved, to be at peace, and to live without asking for permission. When you begin healing from the soul, you shift out of survival mode, the place where you constantly try to predict their moods, their words, their anger or affection, and into the realm of creation. You start making choices based on vision and truth, not fear. You stop reacting like someone cornered. You rise, stand tall, and speak through your energy. I am no longer living in your game. I do not react. I choose. That is what terrifies them. They can't understand why you're no longer angry, no longer begging, no longer responding. They can't understand your silence. That is not cold. Your detachment, that is not resentful. What they fail to see is that you have found a place within yourself, a sacred space they cannot reach. It is the divine connection between you and your soul. And in that space, there is no room for pretense. You are no longer led by chaos. You become the one who carries stability. You no longer wait for someone else to heal your wounds. You become the one who stitches every tear in your heart, every fracture in your trust with your own loving hands. And here's the beauty of it. You don't need to scream to be heard. The peace within you is enough to shatter the illusions they've tried so hard to maintain. Your eyes no longer reflect fear. They radiate awareness. And awareness is the greatest enemy of manipulation. You have become different. You're no longer pulled into pointless arguments. You no longer feel the need to be understood. You understand yourself. You don't need an apology. You've already forgiven, not to give them relief, but to give yourself freedom. And you don't need closure from them, because you are the one who placed the final period on this story. If you're entering that state, the state of true healing, where you no longer live for anyone's validation, but instead for your own inner harmony, then stay until the end of this video. Because what we're about to share will take you deeper into that journey, how to reset your nervous system, how to discern what feelings are truly yours and what has been implanted through manipulation, and how to live with clarity without being swept away by emotional storms that are not your own. If you find value in this journey, don't hesitate to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this video with those you know who are searching for a way out of invisible control. Because every time you choose light over darkness, every time you say, I no longer need to react, you send a powerful message into the world. Freedom doesn't come from outside. Freedom begins with inner awareness. And when you live in that awareness, even for 1 second, you've already stepped out of the spiral. You don't need anyone to validate that for you. Because you know, true healing doesn't need to be seen to be real. It only needs to be lived. Part 3, coherence. The silent power that dissolves manipulation. The world is full of chaos. People wearing masks, words with double meanings, sweet gestures, hiding control. These can all leave a sensitive soul feeling lost. In that picture, the narcissist always stands out, not because they are strong, but because they know how to create chaos. That is where they thrive. It's the environment they can manipulate, confuse, and dominate. But then something happens. Something they can neither predict nor control. You begin to enter a state of coherence, inner alignment. This is not some abstract concept. It's a real state of being. It's when your heart and your mind are no longer at war, but beating in the same rhythm. It's when your emotions are no longer hijacked by a cold remark, a calculated silence, or a subtle put down. You no longer react, you respond, or choose not to. And in that conscious choice, you reclaim all the power they once stole. When you live in coherence, you become unshakably grounded, not because you're forcing strength, not because you've become emotionally numb, but because you've found your center. A center no one can invade, a calm that a narcissist can neither understand nor destroy. This coherence is not just a feeling, it is an energetic field that radiates outward. And when you enter a room, you bring it with you. Those who once manipulated you with vagueness and confusion will feel unsettled. You're no longer predictable. They can no longer find the emotional buttons to press, and that disorients them. You become a mystery they can't decode, a presence they can't distort. And in that stillness, in that coherence, you become free. Meanwhile, you don't need to prove anything. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need eloquent words. Because when your heart is at peace, your energy shines without a sound. And that energy melts away every mask. When others are pretending, all you have to do is be. And the falsehood begins to reveal itself. You're no longer swept into emotional whirlwinds, no longer feel compelled to respond to that cold message right away, no longer feel guilty for setting boundaries, no longer believe you're being selfish for choosing peace over pleasing others. Because now you understand, reactivity is not love, collapsing is not devotion, enduring is not strength. You begin to see clearly. When they choose chaos, you choose order. When they shout, you choose silence. When they manipulate through emotion, you respond with clarity. And that becomes your silent weapon. Stronger than any accusation. You don't need to expose them, you only need to be present, whole, honest, and still. Narcissist doesn't know how to face coherence, they only know how to perform in scripts, where others lose control while they pull the strings behind the curtain. But when you step out of the script, they lose the lead role. They grow disoriented. They try their old tricks, stonewalling, flattery, emotional outburst, blame, but nothing works. Because you are no longer the person who once stood there, and the coherence within you now becomes a spiritual immune system. When they try to infect you with insecurity, you no longer absorb it. When they broadcast chaos, you no longer tune in. Instead of reacting, you observe. Instead of panicking, you step back. Instead of fighting, you release. Not from weakness, but from a strength so grounded, it needs no victory to prove its worth. That is the moment the game ends. And you know the most powerful part? You're not just escaping them. You are becoming a higher version of yourself. A version that no longer lives through reflex, but through intention. A version that no longer chases those who can't see your worth, but walks forward confidently in the light you've created from within. If you're sensing this shift within you, even if it's just a seed, just one clear moment in the midst of chaos, then this video is for you. Stay with us until the end, because in the next section, you'll be guided deeper into how to maintain this state of coherence, how to strengthen your inner peace, and how to become your own sanctuary, untouchable by outside forces. And if this content resonates with you and brings you value, please hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video with others on a similar journey, because the world needs more hearts living in coherence, not fear. Remember this, you don't need to defeat the narcissist. You just need to live in your light so fully that falsehood simply cannot survive near you. And that is true power. Part 4, when you stop waiting for an apology from the one who hurt you. There comes a moment in the healing journey when you're faced with a profound truth. The apology you've longed for may never come. Not because you don't deserve it, but because the person who hurt you lacks the capacity, the awareness, and sometimes the humanity to offer it sincerely. You once thought if they would just admit their wrongs just once, understand how deeply I've been hurt, maybe I'd feel some relief. But the truth is, you don't need their acknowledgement to heal. Your healing cannot depend on the awareness of someone still trapped in their own illusions. And when you begin to see this, not just intellectually, but through the quiet acceptance that comes from the heart, you enter a completely new phase. The phase of self-liberation. You no longer seek validation from the place that once made you question your reality. You stop trying to understand why they did what they did, why they were cruel, why love turned into a weapon aimed straight at your heart. Because now you understand, true love is never a weapon. And if someone made you feel small, afraid, or invisible, that wasn't love. That was control wrapped in softness. You also stop hoping they'll change. You let go of the fantasy that one day they'll wake up and return with remorse in their eyes. Because you now realize forgiveness does not require their regret. It requires your decision that this pain will no longer run your life. And that decision, that inner choice, is where your power begins. When you start doing something incredibly important, something many never do, you give yourself permission to close the chapter, even without a happy ending. You don't wait for an apology. You don't wait for closure. You create it by redefining your own worth, by tending to your heart like a child in need of love, by choosing to move forward, not because you've forgotten, but because you refuse to keep living a life centered around someone who caused you pain. And then something remarkable happens. You feel lighter than you ever imagined. Even though you once believed you needed their apology to be free, you begin to see things more clearly. You realize that an apology would never have been enough if it came from someone who never truly understood the damage they did. And sometimes forgiveness isn't about whether they deserve it, but because you deserve freedom. You also begin to look back at yourself, not with blame, but with compassion. You see how long you stayed in an unsafe space because you believed in the goodness that might emerge. You realize how much you endured, how much you gave, how long you kept loving, all in the hope they might change. And then you realized you weren't wrong to believe in love. The mistake was forgetting to love yourself first. From here, you begin rebuilding your life, not on a shaky foundation of others' expectations, but on a deep commitment to yourself. A commitment that says you will never again allow anyone to steal the peace within your heart, that you will never apologize for setting boundaries, that you will no longer dim your inner light just to make someone else comfortable. You come to a profound realization: their silence no longer hurts the way it once did, because now you are the one who has chosen silence, not out of surrender, but because you have transcended. That silence is no longer injustice. It is freedom. There is nothing left to prove, nothing left to hold on to, nothing left to chase. If you're feeling this truth stir within your heart, even if it's just a first flicker, stay with this video until the end, because together we will explore how to rise above the need for closure, how to transform unacknowledged emotions, and how to live fully, even when the one who hurt you never truly understood the depth of your pain. And if this message resonates with you, whether for yourself or someone you love, please hit subscribe, turn the notification bell, and share this video, because maybe, just maybe, this one video is the key that unlocks the door to freedom for someone who has waited far too long. You don't need them to come back. You don't need an apology. What you need is you, whole, complete, and free. And believe me, you are strong enough to move forward with nothing but your trust in the sacred worth that lives within you. Part 5. Your inner light is the narcissist's worst nightmare. What terrifies a narcissist the most is not your anger. They're not afraid when you cry, scream, or react with fury. In fact, they feed on it. Your emotions are the fuel that powers their control game. They manipulate to provoke your reactions. They hurt you so that you'll chase their attention. They create chaos so you lose yourself in the whirlwind of their emotions. But then one day, you go silent. Not the silence of suppression, but the silence of awakening. You stop explaining, you stop defending, you stop seeking validation, and that's when they panic. Because you've just taken away the only source of energy they could manipulate, your emotional response, your inner light. The one they tried to dim with coldness, blame, and denial now shines brighter than ever. You're no longer looking for them. You're not trying to forget them either. You've risen above them, not through revenge, but through freedom. Not with sharp words, but with unwavering presence. When you step into deep peace, when you can look at them without fear, when you can stand in the same space without being pulled into their energy, you become their greatest nightmare. Why? Because you are living proof of what they can never fake: emotional sovereignty. A narcissist can pretend to be kind, loving, intelligent, and funny, but they cannot sustain energetic coherence because everything they do stems from a wounded ego, not from the soul. And when someone begins to live from within, with awareness, with self-love, with emotional wisdom, that person becomes a mirror that reflects everything false the narcissist has tried to use to mask their true, fragmented self. You don't need to call them out. You don't need to prove them wrong. Your calm is the clearest evidence of the collapse of their manipulation system. When you no longer react, they lose their leverage. When you're no longer afraid, they lose their weapon. When you're no longer emotionally controlled, they lose every ounce of power they once held. You begin to realize strength isn't about being the loudest voice in the room. True strength is found in your refusal to engage with anything that no longer resonates with your frequency. When you walk into a room, you carry stability with you, not the kind that masks tension, but a peace that radiates from within. You are no longer nice in a way that invites exploitation. You no longer give unconditionally in a way that harms yourself. You are simply present, clear, conscious, and luminous. And that light alone causes manipulators to retreat. They feel uneasy, even though you've done nothing. They feel threatened, even though you're standing still. They feel a loss of control, even though you haven't said a word, because you're no longer operating on their frequency. And when frequencies don't align, manipulation can't function. They may try to come back. They'll use every trick, feigned remorse, expressions of regret, haunting words like, I can't live without you, or no one understood me the way you did. But this time, you're different. You don't need to fight them. You only need not to react. You only need to stand firm, and your stability will naturally filter out everything that no longer belongs. You don't need to prove you've changed. You are the change. And that, something beyond words, is what makes the narcissist incapable of reaching you anymore. If you're moving through this stage where you're beginning to see the quiet power in your silence, stay with this video until the end, because in the next section, we'll explore how to protect your energy after escaping the narcissist, how to maintain boundaries without tension, and how to build a new version of yourself, free, grounded, non-reactive, and led by your truest self. And if what we've shared here has brought you value, not just for you, but perhaps for someone who's searching for light in the darkness, please hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share this video, because the journey of rising beyond pain is not a path you must walk alone. We are building a community where awareness is strength and peace is our silent weapon. Remember this, your light does not need anyone's permission to shine. And the narcissist cannot survive for long in a light they can no longer manipulate. Part 6, Awakening, the quiet end to a toxic game. It's not revenge, it's public confrontation. It's not a bold text message or a long post exposing the truth. All of those things might offer temporary relief, but the truth is this, the narcissist game doesn't end with noise. It ends with deep, silent awakening. This awakening doesn't crash in all at once. It rises slowly like the dawn, illuminating the dark corners of your soul you once hid or didn't dare to face. It begins the moment you realize you no longer need anything from the one who hurt you. No explanations, no acknowledgement, no change. Not even the satisfaction of them realizing what they lost when you walked away. You are no longer the one chasing validation from someone else. You've stopped trying to justify their behavior with false compassion you once used to convince yourself. You've grown clear enough to understand forgiveness does not mean continuation, and peace doesn't come from the approval of the one who hurt you. It comes from your decision that their pain will no longer define who you are. And then, quietly, you step out of the game. No announcement. No romanticized farewell. You vanish like light dissolving darkness. The narcissist won't notice it right away, but they will feel it. They'll stumble. They'll come back and test the waters with their old tactics. Silence to trigger you, sweet words to pull you back, vulnerability to awaken your empathy. But this time, your energy is no longer there. You're not angry. You're not bitter. You're not resisting. Not because you've grown cold, but because you've chosen healing. You've chosen life. You've chosen you. And that gentle yet unshakable is the real ending to a toxic relationship. Narcissists don't fear losing you. They fear losing control over you. And when you no longer react, no longer play the role they assigned you, no longer get caught in the emotional traps they so carefully laid, they lose their lead character, and the play comes to an end. Awakening isn't something that happens in a single moment, it's a process. It begins when you start noticing the subtle signs, the exhaustion you feel in their presence, the tightness in your chest when you hear their voice, the quiet doubt in your gut when they pretend to be loving. You stop forcing yourself to accept what your intuition is screaming against. And is the beginning of your freedom. You begin to trust the signals of your body. You notice how your breath shortens, how your heart races when you're being manipulated, and how it softens when you're alone. You learn to stay with yourself, not feeling lonely, not feeling lacking, but feeling free. You no longer need to defeat them to feel worthy, because true worth has never been in someone else's hands. It lives in the way you look at yourself. And once you begin to see yourself with compassion and honesty, no one can manipulate you again. You no longer need others to understand you in order to know you're right. You no longer live to convince, you live to be. And that, your authentic aliveness, is something no one can steal from you. If you are walking this path, the path of awakening, slowly withdrawing from the toxic emotional game, I invite you to stay until the end of this video, because in the next part, we will explore how to build an unshakable value system within, how to avoid being pulled back into old patterns, and how to become a version of yourself that no one can manipulate or dim. And if this content's brought value to your journey, don't forget to hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share this video with someone who needs it. Because maybe, just maybe, a few words from this video are the very thing someone needs to hear to finally choose freedom for themselves. Remember this, awakening is not rebellion. It is a return, fully. A return to truth, a return to your whole original self, where you no longer need to perform, no longer need to fear, no longer need permission to live as who you truly are. You are not someone who walked away from them. You simply no longer exist on that energetic level. And that, in its quiet power, is the most definitive ending a manipulator never sees come. You don't need to look back when the light ahead is bright enough. After all the chaos, after every tear shed, every sleepless night, every whispered, "Why me?" you stood back up, not with your hands raised in victory, but with a heart that has learned to let go, and eyes that have finally seen the truth that you were never weak. You simply loved too deeply, held on too patiently, and believed in the goodness of someone who never learned to love themselves. And so you stepped out of the game. No slamming doors, no dramatic exits, no need to win, because the awakened no longer play that game. You chose freedom and you walked away, not in a bitterness, but because the light ahead was already too bright to waste another glance behind. You begin living from within, not from fear, not from the emptiness someone left behind, but from a new self, whole, conscious, and powerful enough to never need outside validation again. And that right there is something no manipulator can ever destroy. Don't believe the journey ends at walking away. No, this is only the beginning. The beginning of a life no longer ruled by false emotions. A life where you are the author, where love is real, and where truth is the atmosphere you breathe. A place no one can distort your inner clarity. You don't need revenge. You don't need to expose anyone. You don't need them to see you thriving just to get back at them. You thrive because you deserve it, and that truth alone ensures they never hold power again. You have to walk in this path, or even just realizing that you need to start, then I invite you to follow this journey to the end. What we share here is not theory. It is light distilled from the darkest nights of the soul. And if it resonates with you, if you see yourself in these words, then please subscribe, turn on a notification bell, and join us in the videos to come. Because awakening is not just personal, it's collective transformation. Every soul that wakes up becomes a candle, lighting the world a little more. And you might just be that light for someone else. But first, be the light for yourself.